It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Bob Chisholm Stewart, DDS, FAGD, sitting next to his lovely wife, Kim Stewart, who you know on Dental Town as Molar Wife. Bob is known to his patients and friends as Dr. Bob. He's been practicing dentistry for 32 years, right up the street from four of my six grandchildren in Beeville, Texas. What is that, about 2 hours away from you?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, well, if they ever start driving me to drinking, I'll be on your front porch before you know it. I'll just be driving over there begging for a beer. He's been practicing dentistry for 32 years and loves it more today than ever. He graduated from dental school San Antonio in '88 and worked as an associate dentist for a large group practice in the Houston area for 3.5 years. From '94 to 2014, Dr. Bob traveled coast to coast as an expert speaker for Lightspeed Technologies, one of the pioneers in the endodontic rotary instrument explosion. In '92, he purchased a small cottage practice in Pasadena, Texas, which has since moved location twice as it has grown over the years. In 2008, he purchased a second location where the selling dentist decided to stay, and working together, they have grown this location over 3 times its original size. Today, Dr. Bob loves both practicing clinical dentistry and leading a team of 5 dentists and 12 team members at 2 locations. Having said all that, Bob's true love is his beautiful wife, Kim, of almost 30 years, his 3 incredible children, Christy, Coco, and Bobby, and his awesome granddaughter, Lacey Grace. I tell my boys all the time that I'm so glad I never killed any of my 4 boys because they made 6 amazing grandchildren. So never kill your children because they're going to make you something even better down the road. How are you guys doing?
Awesome. Good to be here. Thanks for having us.
So tell me the god-awful truth. Am I over-paranoid, Grandpa? Because I keep reading that Houston is a center for Kawasaki disease for coronavirus for children. And then I'm thinking, okay, I got 4 grandchildren, a couple hours up the street. And everybody listening to the podcast, they all want a coronavirus update. So can we just start there? Are my grandchildren... who are so excited because their daddy, my oldest son, Eric, built them a chicken coop, and now they're up to about 9 to 12 eggs a day. And it's so funny because they love the eggs more because they raised them. But Eric did something really strange. He found a breed of chickens that lay blue eggs. And, of course, you can only get blue eggs if you raise them yourself. You can't get those at the store, even though Eric says that there's no nutritional difference or value or anything. In fact, it's actually a lower productivity. Like some of your hens will miss a day laying a blue egg, whereas if you get the most hardy species of chicken, they'll always lay an egg every day. But do you think what's the coronavirus look out there? Is it at one Dental Town? A lot of the dentists think this is insane. It was a virus like the flu, a 1% mortality rate, and we had to shut down the whole economy. And then the other half are running for the hills, and they blah blah blah. Where do you guys sit? But most importantly, this selfish man wants to know: Do you think my grandchildren are in risk of Kawasaki disease in Beeville, Texas?
Well, I would love to speak to that, but I'm no Kawasaki disease expert. But I will tell you that we feel safe. We do. I've had people call and ask, how are you guys? Houston's the new epicenter like New York used to be. And if you watch TV, I kind of got nervous myself. I wondered what on earth was happening in my own home. And then, we go out to the store, we go to the restaurant, we wear our mask, we do what we feel is safe and follow all the recommendations. And when we hit the street, it doesn't feel that much different, Howard. It seems okay.
So So in Arizona, we had to close down from St. Patrick's Day to Cinco de Mayo. So we had 2 months, 2 donuts, where you kept all your team, two donuts. Did you guys have to close down the same length of time? Was it about 2 months?
That's exactly it. We were closed for 2 months. We were here just for the terrible emergencies, and we're back now, and we're feeling good.
Are you, the ADA says their data shows from coast to coast that we're back to about 71% of pre-pandemic level. That's about where our office is, where, we say the 80-20 rule, we still are short 20%. Are you guys, how close are you back to pre-pandemic?
I think your number's spot on. We're 75 to 80%.
Yeah. Well, I was exaggerating. At least 10%. I think we're about the 88, about 70, 71%. And it's there's really two Americas because I got four boys. They're 31. They're basically 31, 29, 27, 25, whatever. And they think this is a joke. I mean, they haven't changed a single behavior. And then I got my 82-year-old mother who's really, really Catholic. She's so Catholic, she makes the Pope look like a liberal. And she don't believe in any of it either. She thinks, that when her time is done, that was decided, a million years ago. And she hasn't changed her behavior or anything. And, but in her practice, it seems like just like that, the 40 and under come in, they don't care, nothing's changed. But it's the 60 and over. And those are the ones that need all the root canals, crowns, implants. All the big case people are still staying home, even though we're offering them that if you pay for your appointment in advance, we will block off the entire office. And when you come, it's just going to be you, the doctor, the assistant. And that helps some, but it's still, the older people need all the work, and they're still scared. Is that what you're seeing? That of the missing 30%, is it mostly grandmas and grandpas?
That's a great question. A big part of our practice is seniors, and I haven't really seen that. Although I love your idea. I mean, the number one thing is we want to keep our patients safe. So, you do what you got to do, and if that's required to keep them safe, that's what we'll do. And we hope we can get them in here and take good care of them.
Man, I'll tell you what, it's a great thing, especially if you have any of those email contact systems where you can just send an email to everyone, say, I'd say 55 and over, and say, due to the pandemic, our regular hours are, say, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5, but we'll open it up Friday and Saturday. Just, we'll rent it to you, but you have to pay for your treatment in advance, and if you don't show up, you lose that. I learned that from the cosmetic surgeons out here, the ones doing facelifts and tummy tucks and all that stuff like that. That's what they're doing. They're saying, okay, I'll block off the whole morning to do your face, but you got to pay the $10,000 fee for the appointment, and if you don't show, you forfeit the money. But it's working for them.
Well, that's why we're townies, Howard. We learned these great things from you, man. I love it. Thanks for that tip.
And your wife is a townie too, but now you're not. Kim, tell us about you. You're a molar wife. Are you the office manager? Or are you an assistant, hygienist? What do you do?
Yes, all of that. I do whatever they all tell me to do. I am a kindergarten teacher by trade who happened to marry a dentist 30 years ago this December. And he said, as we were raising babies, do you want to come in and work? Assistant didn't show up or whatever. And I would come in and help him. Now that the kids are grown and we're empty nesters, I'm here full time. Well, except when I go visit the grandbaby because she's a priority. But I do whatever it is they need me to do. I work up front. I assist. So anything. And you'll even see me on a ladder changing a light bulb or ceiling tile. Whatever I need to do, I do.
Yeah, them Texas girls, they could probably build the barn. I mean, there's
right.
Whatever visions you have of ladies, you'll have your mind blown. I'll never forget. I was in Texas one time, and this girl was walking out. It's a grocery store named Howard. It's got a Howard in it. H&G grocery store. So what's the big grocery store chain in Texas?
Oh, HEB.
HEB. Yeah, and that H is Howard. I learned that from my grandson. That's why God made Google. But my God, I saw a Texas woman walk out of there, and she had like a stroller, 4 bags of groceries, a kid on her neck, a kid in her arm, and she wasn't even blinking. I mean, she was just like, this is what we do when we walk out to our car. My gosh, we both graduated from middle school. I was out in 87. You were 88. This is our second rodeo. I mean, remember HIV, they started talking about it in 79, 80, it was a real thing. 80, it just kept growing and growing. It went on to kill 36 million people. The first person that died in my dental graduation class of 1987 UMKC died of HIV. And my gosh, it was a tragedy. But we had to make all these changes. And I remember back then, being in Kansas, when they were telling those dentists they had to start wearing gloves. I mean, they were like, grabbing their shotgun saying, oh, yeah, make me. I'm not wearing a mask or a glove. And now 30 years later, it's not a glove, it's a mask. They didn't like our cuspidors. They didn't like the water line from the street. We had to get the little bottles. So we made a bunch of changes and got a lot better. In fact, when Asia had their 2012 SARS epidemic, we had ours too. But when SARS hit America in 2012, it killed 38 million souls, but they were all pigs. So, we didn't do anything. But over in Asia, it killed people. And so, like the airplanes, they figured out you can't recirculate the air. So the planes made after 2013, they don't recirculate there. So we made a bunch of incremental improvements. And now it's the second rodeo virus that I've lived through, and we're making changes again. And I'm just wondering, what changes did you make? What changes do you think are just like caught up in the moment that we won't be doing 10 years from now? But what changes do you think you've made for this SARS pandemic that you'll still be doing 10 years from now when the pandemic's gone?
Good question. We spaced out our patients. We put an extra time between every appointment, trying to allow for the patients not to have to intermingle in the waiting room. We blocked off half of our chairs in the waiting room. We have patients who wait in their cars if they like. We don't force that. We tell them we'll text you if you would like. We try and treat to their comfort zone. We put up plastic shields. You see those everywhere these days. We changed the filtration. Basically, I just changed the filters in our HVAC system. I did a little research on that, and I'm not an expert, but apparently a hospital is a MERV 17 rating, whatever that means. So we went out and we wanted to top that. We put MERV 19 in our filters, and I'm probably ruining the AC system with that, but it's there.
So that's MERVE, MERV 19 filtration?
I think it's MERV, and I don't even know what that stands for, Howard. I forgot. I looked it up, and that seemed to be the thing to do. Everybody was kind of running around chasing our tails, and so we made some changes trying to be safe.
Yeah, I caught religion on this 30 years ago when it was a different world before 9/11 and the internet and all that stuff. But there was a time when you could actually go be a tourist at the Intel plant, and I had a ton of patients from Intel, and I always told this guy, one of them patients, I always wanted to see that thing. So he took me down there one time. And I couldn't believe it because the employees show up, they go into a room, they take off all their clothes, they shower, they dress in this astronaut suit, and they go into this room, and it's like the air is filtered to like less than 1 part per billion in the air because one little skin follicle on a chip would ruin it. And then you leave that and you go across the street to Chandler Hospital, the biggest hospital in Chandler, Category 1, helicopters. And you can pull up there with the surgeon, get out of his car, walk in there, go up the elevator, walk into the surgery room, and they might wash their hands for 15 minutes, but they got the same tennis shoes on. We walked across the parking lot with, bird manure, ant manure, scorpion manure, and I thought to myself, wow, the people who make chips are 1,000 times cleaner than the people that are filleting open human beings, exposing them to all this stuff. And then you start talking to CDC people, and they say, well, it's really hard to get the numbers, but we think 200 to 300,000 Americans die each year in the hospital from something they didn't go into the hospital, which was another big reason I don't like government-sponsored health care. I mean, government, pay like Medicare for my mom. That's totally different because the government's doing the insurance, but Free Enterprise is delivering it. I don't think the government can manage anything. But my gosh, I mean, when they start talking about health care for all, it's like, I don't know if I want to ramp up a system that's already eating 300,000 Americans a year. I think maybe they should fix that first before they start telling everybody. And the same thing with prescriptions. I mean, we know by the time you're on 5 prescriptions, you have polyphagia, and then they start having all these reactions and falling apart. So when people start screaming that prescription should be free, I'm like, are you sure about that? I don't want my grandkids growing up in a world where everybody's handing them free pills and encouraging them to go to the hospital for free. I mean, that's like 2 real high risky behaviors. But what do you think? Do do you think all these things that you're doing now, you'll be doing 10 years from now?
What do you think?
Smart man, he turns to his wife. Yeah.
Some of them, I certainly hope they do. I mean, some of the changes, I think they're good. I think it's great. But I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah. What changes did you like that you think are good? Was it the plastic shield? Was it what have you changed where you thought, yeah, this makes a lot of sense?
Well, I mean, I personally like the masks. You know, I haven't had a cold since last year, and I'm sure a lot of it's because people are walking around wearing masks when we're talking. We're not spewing, and so we're not in breathing that in. I'm good with the masks. All of our team wears masks up front. You know, I mean, just all the time.
And you know, that was one of the most interesting because I grew up in a very Catholic family. My two older sisters went straight into the nunnery right out of high school. My oldest sister's 61. I mean, I think she's been a nun since she was like 18. And the Western world, Judeo-Christian, Islamic, it's one type of thinking. But the Eastern world, you know, Buddhism, Hinduism, different world. And I can remember the first times I started lecturing around Asia, you know, Shenzhen and Hong Kong and all those places like there. And I would see people wearing a mask, and I would say, you know, like, why? Thinking, are they immunocompromised or whatever? And they were always wearing a mask because, you know, I didn't feel good today, and I don't want to be breathing a virus on someone. They were always wearing the mask to protect you. It had nothing to do with them. They're just like, I feel like I might have something, and so I'm just going to wear a mask until I feel great again. I thought, wow, that is a totally different culture. I mean, and now, of course, when I've been there recently, they wear it a lot more for pollution for themselves. But before the skies were gray from all the industrial pollution, they were actually wearing the mask because they were concerned about infecting you. And it'll be really interesting to see if all this mask stuff makes us have a lot less influenza this year.
I wonder that too. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that attitude, Howard, there's a country song I love, and it's been on the radio a lot lately. As a matter of fact, it kind of epitomizes the kind of my value and mission statement here. And the song says, in a world full of hate, and I kind of changed that to darkness, hate or darkness, be a light. And so, you know, if even if I'm not buying into this whole mask thing, if I'm considerate of those around me enough to wear one for their sake, that's being a light. And that's kind of what we try and do here in this office, whether it's wearing our mask or doing the highest quality dentistry we can do.
Is that the Reba McEntire, Keith Urban, Reba McEntire, Be a Light?
It is.
Yeah, I think you're right. Reba does sing in it. There's several that are involved in that tune. It's a wonderful, wonderful.
I'm now that is the one beef I have in Texas. My son grew up, you know, our garage was always just a wrestling mat. We never parked in the garage. We're like third generation wrestling family from my uncle, Chick, to me, to my four boys. And we'd always work out in the garage, and we'd play those songs. And, you know, he grew up on Bruce Springsteen, The Boss. And then he met some girl from Texas, moved out to Beeville, and now it's just country music. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what happened to all the rock and roll that your daddy played for you? And he says, Dad, that was a warm-up for country, and that is probably the only thing we disagree on. I'm like, well, do you want to hear a little bit of Bruce Springsteen? And then he'll text me a YouTube video of some country song. But yeah, so it says, be a light. In a time full of war, be peace. In a time full of doubt, just believe. Yeah, there ain't that much difference between you and me. In a time full of war, be peace. In a world full of hate, be light. When you do somebody wrong, make it right. Don't hide in the dark. You were born to shine. In a world full of hate, be light. In a place that needs change, make a difference. In a time full of noise, just listen. Because life is but a breeze. Better live it. In a place that needs a change, make a difference. In a world full of hate, be a light. When you do somebody wrong, make it right. What? Those are great lyrics, man. Kind of reminds me of that poem I always loved. Everybody thinks Mother Teresa Calcutta wrote it, but she didn't write it. She just had it hanging on her wall. It was that song Anyway. And that is the only poem where I actually have to read it at least a couple of times a month because it just works for me. And that is people are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. If you do good, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. If you're successful, you win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. The good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Honesty and frankness make you vulnerable. Be honest and frank anyway. The biggest men and women with the biggest ideas can be shot down by the smallest men and women with the smallest minds. Think big anyway. People favor underdogs, but only follow top dogs. Fight for a few underdogs anyway. What you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway. People really need help, but may attack you if you do help them. Help them anyway. And give the world the best you have, and you'll get kicked in the teeth. There's the dentist part of it. That's why I love it. It had teeth. Give the world the best you have anyway. And it's just, I just always tell my boys, people are complicated, and that's them. But it's your job to be good anyway. Just be good. And my oldest sister actually read all the major original religions in their unique language. I mean, she's a translator for Rome, and she knows all that stuff. And she sent me the most powerful thing. I wonder if I have it. Let me see if I still kept that anywhere. My gosh. Anyway, it was anyway in the top religions. You can't find a name of a person, place, or town in all the major religions. The only thing you can find that's in Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Christianity, Islam is the golden rule. Treat other people like you want to be treated, and it's so exactly written that if we all wrote it differently today at Texas A&M, they call it plagiarism, and that's why she thinks they're all praying to the same God, because she says they're either all praying to the same God or they're all plagiarizing, because they're all stealing each other's work. And then she goes back to the history of they probably couldn't get around and do that. I thought I had that somewhere. I don't, but. Yeah, it's amazing. I wanted to. There's so many things I can talk to you about, but you basically the main changes are air filters, plexiglass shields, masks, more time in between the patients. Anything else ring a bell?
No, not that I can come to mind. I'm sure there's some other things, but right now, off the top of my head.
Well, at least you got hair on the top of your head keeping your thoughts in there. Mine are just flying out. There's nothing up there.
Remember 1988 and 1990 when you started? I don't think you had any more hair then, did you?
No, I was losing it in high school. And my gosh. Did the hygienists have to give up any aerosol? Did they have to give up the Cavitron, the piezo reamers, and go hand scaling? What about you on endo? Any ultrasonic? Any clinical stuff have to change?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't think about it. We did. We had to give up ultrasonic cleaners. The hygienists did for a couple of months. They're back as just maybe a week or two ago. We still use some Prudence. We don't let her use the ultrasonic, routinely. But for a perio patient, she can now use it.
But we get when she used to work alone, now we give her an assistant. So she has the
we give her an assistant. We also we were very careful not to leave, we have a pretty busy practice, and I might prep a crown and then go check hygiene while the assistants make an attempt and then come back and take the impression. We had to stop that. You sit down with one patient, you stay with that patient until you're done. And then you clean up, regarb, and go to the next patient. And so we did some things like that.
So that made me wonder, clear back in the day when this thing started coming, if this was going to be the rebirth of the CAD-CAM chairside milling, because you don't, once you suit up to go do a moonwalk, with your Neil Armstrong suit on, you can't. I can't go do a hygiene check, go cement a crown, go prep, let someone, I can't run 4 or 5 chairs. You suit up, you go in there, and I was sitting there thinking, so she came in for a toothache. I always do the root canal first because, when you prepare for your final restoration, it shortens the tooth, it flattens it out, the links are the same, the access is everything. And then sometimes when you try to prepare the final restoration, you find out the tooth is not even restorable, and the endo would have been a waste of time. But when you get done with the root canal and the buildup, gosh, it'd be nice just to chair side scan, mill it out, all be done. Did you have the Cerac machine or the E4D? And did you ever have that? Or does that look different to you now post pandemic?
Yeah, it does. It's very attractive. I do not have a chairside milling machine. We do scan and email in our impressions, and that was nice. That helped with workflow a lot because no longer do I return to take an impression. I pretty much leave the prep and let the assistants do everything from that point on. They take the scan. I just give it a look and a blessing, and we're good. So that's been a huge time saver and helped with flow.
Do you use holy water on the blessing, or do you just make the sign of the cross?
Well, I use Houston tap, buddy. It works great.
That was a funny. I wanted to get a picture. I wanted to get a picture last time. My 2-year-old grandson Jasper, he loves his bottled water, and I'm sitting there and I was drinking out of the hose, and Ryan took the picture and goes, "There's a difference between someone born in 1960 versus 2018. One's drinking bottled water, and Grandpa's still drinking out of the hose." I still think there's no better tasting water than out of the hose. There's something about hose water that it's the best water. But when were you an Empergum boy, and then what did you start scanning with? Did you go iTero? Did you True Def? What
we have the Trios, and we love it.
The Trios from 3Shape?
Correct.
Now I've noticed that everyone that like you that gets the Trios 3Shape, it seems like the implantologists love it. The Crown and Bridge boys love it. All the Crown and Bridge restorative implantologists love it. But it seems like if you're doing clear aligners, you went with the iTero scanner because that's owned by Align Technology, which owns Invisalign. So when you said that you went with Trios 3Shape, the first thing I thought is probably not doing clear aligners. And you said earlier you got a lot of older patients. Do you do clear aligners?
We do, and we use Invisalign, and actually I was surprised to find out that, the Trios was not compatible with Invisalign. We're very blessed here in Houston.
It was compatible until the big boys on Wall Street decided they don't want to feed the competition, and then they made it non-compatible, and then it went into a lawsuit. I don't know where it went with the lawsuit, but can you take a 3Shape right now and send that file into Invisalign?
Invisalign will not take it. There are other clear aligner companies out there that will.
So does that make you want to switch clear aligner companies and go to?
Can we talk about this on the air? Are we good?
Absolutely. This is Dentistry Uncensored. I just the poem I said. What did I say? I said what did the guy that wrote that poem? It was called his name was Dr. Kent M. Keith, and it was called The Paradoxical Commandments of Leadership. And Mother Teresa hung that on her wall, and all she did is change the last line where it says, give the world the best you have and you'll get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you have anyway. And then Mother Teresa just added, because at the end of the day, it was never between you and them. It was between you and God. So do the right thing. So, but it was his deal. But he says, what did he say? Honesty and frankness make you vulnerable. Be honest and frank anyway. I mean, I've always called my podcast Dentistry Uncensored. I call my lecture. I used to call my lecture Dental Mania. I said, look, I'm a dental maniac, and if I offend you, just know that I'm talking to you as if how I want you to talk to me. I want you to tell me the truth. I don't want you to sugarcoat it. And I think that's why so many people are confused. Like, they'll say, well, why do all these Americans care what these celebrities think? Well, when who's that dope Willie Nelson, when he's on the Tonight Show and he's telling you he smokes pot, he's telling you he didn't pay his taxes, he's telling you he's going to jail, why would he lie? But when some guy walks out there with a suit and tie and he's a politician, you know if his lips are moving, he's lying. And I just told people, I said, I might offend you, but I'm absolutely telling you what the hell I think. I'm not sugarcoating it, and I'm not lying to you. So hell yeah. Be honest. I always wondered back because we own Orthotown too, right? And the orthodontists on Orthotown, when they started really getting mad at Invisalign, they were setting up their own stores. They were doing things with Smiles Direct Club, whatever. I would say to them, I say, well, so then are you going to quit using Invisalign? And they'd say, well, unfortunately, I really like the product. So it's kind of like Microsoft. It's like Bill Gates. I mean, everything he's ever sold me on Microsoft has been a used Chrysler with 1,000 viruses. So when I hear him out there talking about how we can do everything better, I'm like, why don't you shut up and go back to Microsoft and just fix all the crap you've been selling me? I mean, for 30 years, I would give Bill Gates $1,000 for software, and then I'd have to pay an IT guy another $1,000 to come work all the bugs and kinks. And I remember getting yelled at by IT people saying, don't ever buy anything new from Microsoft because they just sell crap. They know it's all loaded with bugs, and because it's just money, 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 and more money, and money, money, and more money. And he had to be the richest guy in the world. And so whenever I hear him talking on TV or whatever, I have to change the channel just so that I don't have a stroke or throw something at my TV, and then that'll even cost me more money. But yeah, what's your thoughts? You have the 3Shape. Out of Copenhagen, Denmark, the Trios. Are you thinking about using another aligner company?
In the spirit of all honesty, our scanner, I cannot say that we researched them all and chose it. We chose it because it was free.
Your Trios 3Shape scanner was free?
Yeah, it was free.
Well, how the hell did that happen? You can't stop there.
I found if I squeeze the budget, I can afford free.
Well, ignore the dad jokes. Don't even.
Well, they're granddad jokes now. They're even worse. They're even worse.
So I got an email from a lab called Dandy. Are you familiar with Dandy?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
Is that out of Texas?
I don't know where their central office is, honestly. What I found is that that's an umbrella, and they kind of sub out to some different labs, I believe. So the first email I got from Andy, if you're like me, Howard, you get 10,000 emails every day, and everybody wants to give me something free. And, I just don't have time to sort through them all. So the first two I got, I kind of discarded. And finally, one day they caught me on a good day. I don't know, I was in a good humor. And I clicked on it and read it and said, okay, send me your agreement, because I'm thinking, this is going to be a long commitment. It's going to be, there's some kind of catch. Their agreement was about as simple as it comes. And basically the deal is if I will use them for my Crown and Bridge lab, they send me a free Trios 3, all of the maintenance, all of the updates and training for the team. So I did it. And I couldn't be happier. It's been fantastic. The crowns are literally, for 32 years, I've heard labs claim that their crowns drop in. These crowns are dropping in. I'm a happy camper. And so that's why we got the Trios 3. So to come back to your question, what do I think about Invisalign? I'm really sad they won't take the Trios 3. I wish that they would, grow, kind of figure all of that stuff out and work together. However, Invisalign is a good product, and I've tried other clear aligners, and I like Invisalign better. So we're pretty blessed here in Houston area. There's a place called Wilson Radiographic Labs, and I basically send my patients there. They get a Ceph, they get a scan, and then everything's uploaded to Invisalign into my office.
So when someone wants clear aligners, you send them to oral radiology place. Is that what it is? And
Exactly.
And they do what do they do? What do they do on a CBCT, PanoCeph? What do they do?
And you want them to. If we have a periodontist who comes in and he orders CBCTs through Wilson, we order basically records. If you like, it's a turnkey. They'll take your photographs. They'll take your Ceph. They'll do the scan. I usually use them for the scan since Invisalign will not take our Trios 3, and for a Ceph, which I don't have in the office.
And to the young kids, they come out of school and they're it's tough, and I feel sorry for them, and I really appreciate you guys. I'm not calling you older, but you do have grandkids to come on and talk real world dentistry, and the kids love them. Everyone listening right now, a quarter of them are still in dental school, and the rest are all under 30. Almost no one sends me an email to howard@dentaltown.com and has reached 40. It just doesn't happen. And, I look at the kids and they upgrade their iPhone, every 2 or 3 years. And then I say, okay, well, if you buy a CBCT for $100,000, you're going to use it for 20 years. Would you like to go back to your Motorola flip phone or your Nokia phone or all that? They don't even know what that is. And then they're complaining because they got $400,000 student loans. And I tell them, okay, well, the average divorce in dentistry is about, $1 million. So, just don't get divorced and you save your student loans 2.5 times. And then the other thing is, if they come out and they buy a $100,000 laser, a $100,000 CBCT, and a $100,000 CAD CAM, they just double their student loan debt. Yeah. And all the doctors I go to, if they needed something like an X-ray, a CAT scan, an MRI, or whatever for 58 years, they just tell me you need to go here, and I don't ever sit there and say, well, you should have a CAT scan right here, and so it's just if a CBCT, I heard this the other day. Well, those CBTs were 132,000, but now they're on sale for 100,000. So I'll save 32,000. You're not saving 32,000 if you spend $100,000. When you spend $100,000, you spent $100,000. You didn't save 32,000. So you don't even need. So you're not even buying a CBCT.
I'm not.
And then the other distinction I want to make with the periodontist is the other big trend that we're seeing, and I learned this the hard way. You get these kids young out of school, and they go take courses on implants, and they place some implants with you for 2 or 3 years, and then they go on, and then some of those implants, when they fail, here's what it is. When the average dentist has 2/3 overhead, 65% according to the ADA, and you do 5 implant cases, and one of them fails, and you have to send it to the periodontist to redo the whole case for free, that costs the profit of the 4 implant companies that worked. So now the DSOs have all reached the same conclusion that we're not making any money by teaching young kids how to place implants when you got a periodontist that's already placed 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000, and we'd rather send in the specialists and do it. And the other thing is the lawyers, if a general dentist does it and it fails, the lawyers think, oh, well, he should have referred it. I'll take him to the board. But if it's a specialist, they don't do that because they know it's going to be a dead end. And then the insurance companies, adding fuel to fire, if I do a molar root canal, they'll give me like $700. But if I'm an endodontist in the same building, they'll give me like $1,200. So if I pay the endodontist 40% of production, I make more money than if I pay a general dentist 25% of production. And on molar endos, if a general dentist does it in 5 years, 10% will be extracted. But if an endodontist does it in 5 years, 5% extracted. So you got 1 in 20 less teeth failing. And when the endodontist fails, it's just like, hey, did everything you could. General dentist fails. Now you got the game theory. Well, should it have been referred? So I see the DSOs moving to periodontists, and I also see them moving to radiographic centers. I mean, why buy a CBCT for 1,000 locations when you can have regional X-ray centers? So, you use a periodontist. How often does he come in?
So he comes into each location just once a month, and we line up our implants and our periosurgeries, and he works till he's done. And it's been great. Here's the best thing about that. When you have to tell somebody they need to go to another office, what do they say? First thing out of their mouth, can't you do it here, doc? And when we say, yes, we can do it here, I bet we have about, I'm going to make up a number, but I bet our acceptance rate is 50 to 80% higher. They come back. And when we send them away, we may or may not see them back for that. We'll see them again in 6 months, but they just don't like to go to a new place. So it's a wonderful service for the patient.
And it's what we've all learned from watching 300 years of retail. I mean, 300 years ago, it was a little shop house about the size of your garage. You live upstairs. And then the next generation of kids were saying, well, I'm going to combine the bread and the produce and have a bigger store, and then it bankrupt the other ones. And the next guy came along and said, well, I'm going to add a butcher. So I have produce, bread, and meat. And the stores just kept getting bigger until you have your modern day Walmart, IKEA, Price Club, Walmart, Sam's Club, where it's retail, it's convenience. And now I'm seeing that, if 100 soccer moms take their kid to a pediatric dentist, 100 of them are going to ask the pediatric dentist, do you think little Billy will need braces someday? So here's a slip, go down the street. Now you see young pediatric dentist with a young orthodontist. So now you have 1 + 1 = 3. And a pediatric dentist starting with an orthodontist, they grow twice as fast as an individual pediatric dentist because of convenience. And who could miss out on Clear Choice, where they took the periodontal surgeon, the prosthodontist, and the lab tech. They put all three under one roof, and I mean that thing's a couple hundred locations and been bought and sold 4 or 5. It's a cash cow for $25,000 an arch, all on 4, just because it's all right under one roof and it's convenient, and they offer the financing. Which I got to remind you, my mom claims we're 100% Irish. I don't agree with that. I'm sure there's a goat or a duck in there somewhere, or a horse or a cow. But it was, they all use Singer sewing machines, because during the Irish diaspora in 1850, which is like 40 years before the Statue of Liberty, when all the Irish washed up on the shore, all the jobs were in textiles, and you couldn't get a textile job unless you had a sewing machine. That was $50, and everybody wanted their $50. And Singer was about the 20th sewing machine company to come along, and it was not known for anything other than the fact that old man Singer said, I'll give you the sewing machine, and you get paid $3 every Friday, and you're going to bring old man Singer back one of them dollars for 50 weeks in a year. And that was installment credit. And then the same thing with Henry Ford. I mean, he made 10 million cars, and everybody thinks he invented the car. He was like the 85th car company, but everybody else was making one car a year for the richest king, and Henry was going to make a car for the working man, and he sold 10 million, and it's like, okay, we'll finish the story, and they never finished the story right. It was a Frenchman, DuPont, who went to GM, and he said, well, old man Ford, you can have any car you want as long as it's a Model T and it's black, and you got to give them all $668. But we're going to have a Chevy go against the Pontiac, and then for 100 more, we're going to have that luxury of being able to take the wheels off. And then for 100 more, we're going to have that new spark plug Delco out of Indiana. For $100 more, we're going to have a roof over the car, and that's a Buick. And for $100 more than that, we're going to have a Cadillac, which is going to have this new thing from Motorola. Do you know what that was?
What?
Rock and Rolla. It was going to have a radio.
Oh, nice.
So it was going to have removable wheels, a spark plug, a roof, and music. But he said how we're going to sell this is installment credit. Ford wants all $668 right now, and we're going to start GM AC financing. And from day one until yesterday, GM AC financing has made $3 a profit financing the $1 car. And Henry had to close down the Model T because everybody got installment credit. So when people so right now there's a lot of people ranting on Dental Town that, you know what, this pandemic, it's the last straw for insurance. I'm dropping insurance. I want all my cash up front, blah, 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 blah. And I just don't know if you have 300 years of retail experience and financing experience. I mean, usually if you want more of something, you subsidize it from the employer or the government. And if you want less of something, you tax it, raise the price, or regulate it. Are you guys flirting with that? I mean, do you guys have fantasy flirtations with dropping all insurance and going cash only? And did the pandemic accelerate that thinking or squash it or change it?
Well, I have fantasies all the time, Howard, but they don't have to do with financing dentistry.
Does it have to do with fishing?
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. My wife is right here.
But you've seen those threads on Dental Town, like the other day. There's a big thread, and I got the letter too from Aetna, where Aetna's sending letters to endodontists saying we'll give you a big chunk of change if you agree to a lower fee schedule. And a lot of dentists are thinking, well, when they didn't cover the PPE fee, they're thinking, I'm just going to drop insurance. Do you take Medicaid, Medicare, HMO, capitation, PPO? What is your insurance business model, and has the pandemic changed any of it?
You want to address that?
No, we don't take any HMOs, no DMOs. We're probably mostly PPO. We have an in-house insurance plan for people who don't have insurance. And we do have, I think about 3, maybe 5% is Medicaid kids. Is that Medicaid?
Mm-hmm.
Medicaid, yeah. I would love to do no insurance, but I do not see that in our future at all. Not here. I just can't even imagine.
Yeah, and the other thing that it really helps. First of all, like when I gave my first lecture, August 4th, 1990, I had no idea that 30 years later I'd lecture in 50 countries. And the first thing you see right out of the gate is if the employers don't offer a dental subsidy. It's not dental insurance. To the kids, what I mean by that is, you know, if 100 people drive a car, we all have car insurance, but only one guy wrecks the car. And if we all have fire insurance on our house, 100 people have it, but only one person is smoking in bed and burns their house down. So everybody pays a little for one guy to make a claim. But health insurance, if you had dental insurance for on 100 people, well, how many of them would need a cleaning, exam, and x-ray? How many of them would need a recall? How many of them wouldn't floss? How many of them would drink Coca-Cola? I mean, there's no way to spread the risk around. So all medical insurance has turned into medical subsidies. So if the employer is subsidizing dentistry, or the government in the state Medicaid is subsidizing dentistry, or whatever, the dental industries in those countries are enormously bigger. And then when you go to a country where the employers and the government doesn't subsidize it, China's a great example, and they do it out of their philosophy, their religion. They say to me, they go, well, if you drink Coca-Cola and eat chocolate all day and eat 10 cavities, why should your employer or your government pay for that? And they call that a moral hazard. They say, well, you know what? Maybe you having to pay a couple $100 on 10 fillings will make you quit eating chocolate and drinking Dr. Pepper. So I don't know how they could get dental insurance going in China for at least another generation, because that's what they believe. But my gosh, when employers and government subsidize something, you see a lot more of it. And so I think the dental industry would contract a lot if all the dental insurance and Medicaids, if they all went away. I guarantee you, as those dollars went out, the industry would contract. I mean, do you agree or do you disagree?
Well, I do, but I want to go back to what you said earlier. I think you were talking about, I don't want to get lost here, but in talking about financing treatment, where we were just a minute or two ago, there is one of the clear aligner companies that is offering kind of an automatic approved finance. And they're almost, I think it's Ortho Clear, but we may need to check that. We may need to fact check, where if it's 20 aligners or less, they finance it, no questions asked, and they pay the dentist a flat rate fee. It's kind of an interesting concept, but it's kind of coming back to what you were saying, where, they're almost making the dentist the employee. Are you familiar with that, Howard?
Yeah. Okay. And what threw me off at Dandy is Dandy, it was formerly Ortholy. So that's Patrick Lee. So that's what threw me for a loop on that. So it's they're financing those guys are financing the clear aligners? They are.
Now it has to be a case under 20 aligners. And it's an auto approval from what I understand. Now, I haven't used any of those. I haven't done this yet, but it's some literature that's being sent out right now, kind of in Canvas.
Huh. Interesting. And the one thing that you always learn from other people's failures. And Orthodontic Centers of America, Gasper Lazaris, you remember Orthodontic Centers of America? He basically, it was a liquidity strategy. You had a bunch of old orthodontists, and it's kind of like a house. If you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, you can go to the market and sell it in a day or a week or a month. But if you got a 10-bedroom, 10 million square foot mansion, you let your money get really far from cash, and it's going to be really hard to turn that back into cash. And that's one of the reasons the NBA and the NFL players do so poor financially, is because when you build a 10-bedroom home with an 11-car garage, the only other person who has the money to buy that wants to build their own dream house. It's just they let their money get too far from cash.
I'll say a word to the young dentists you say that are listening.
Yeah.
Can I do that?
Yeah, please.
Well, first of all, congratulations. Dentistry is fantastic. I've been doing it 32 years, and you guys have made a good choice. It's been awesome. Don't let the times. I know this COVID world is a tough world, but it's the sun will come out tomorrow, and dentistry for me has been phenomenal. And what other business? At the end of the day, besides making a nice living for your family, can you truly look back and go, there was meaning to what I did today. I improved someone else's life with what we did. And The other thing I will say, so you've chosen a great career, and congratulations on that. Secondly, I would say, and you alluded to this earlier, Howard, when you said you were talking about, the younger dentists want to get trained to do this and that. My advice would be learn to do what you know, learn those basics first. A lot of times I do see young dentists and they're so caught up in excitement and wanting to take so many new things, but they haven't really mastered the first things first. And so, master well the few principles that you were taught in school, and then start branching out. You'll find your way. It may, for me, I'm a GP, but I kind of found my way into endodontics. I really like that and taught it for a few years. And yours may be surgery, or it may be ortho. But you've chosen a great career, and keep your chins up and have a blast and make people better.
That is beautiful, and I want to talk to about that endo, because you were going around the country, and you were with the Lightspeed technologies, and when I was in and now you have so now there's a whole new movement going on, and that is and it was started with John on Dental Town. When the endodontist John from Colorado, what is that? Where is he at? Not Durango. John Katami, is that how you say his name? But anyway, he was saying, he's been saying for a decade that that when we went to 300 RPM nighttime, when I got out of school, it was all files, and for the first 5 years, I had a blister on my finger and my thumb because you're just working the files. And then they came out with that 300 RPM night tie. It was Ben Johnson, Tulsa Dental Products, and I mean, it was, my God, you could just blow out those canals in 1/10 the time. I mean, it was just crazy how efficient it was. But a lot of people started screaming like, well, that's a .04 taper, and that's weakening a lot of tooth structure, and you're taking out too much, and it shouldn't be over a 30 in size, because all that is a glide path to get the irrigants down there to irrigate and clean and shape. And now Sonendo's come out where they say, well, just get it up to a 30 and then hook this thing up to a washing machine, and it's going to irrigate and clean all that out. And there's a lot of guys. When I was at Israel, it was amazing. You remember those Danville micro etchers that had that what the diamond's the hardest thing, and then what was it, aluminum oxide, which was the second hardest thing to diamonds. And this Israeli guy showed me where my gosh, he'd only file out to a 20, and then he hooked it up to this water air aluminum oxide, and he hooked that up to the molar, and in like 30 seconds, I mean, every lateral canal in that block was just cleaned out. And I'm hearing a lot of business models talk about that. What got you excited about Lightspeed Technologies? What tell us your journey about that, and how long ago that started, and why you were excited enough to go out and spread the word. And how do you think that looks now 20 years later? And what do you think the next generation of endo? Do you think it'll be like these Sonendo irrigators? Or so go back to your journey. How did you get into molar endo? And I want the kids to listen, because this is what you need to know. A real doctor can get you out of pain with a root canal or an extraction. And you don't go to the hospital with a broken leg and ever hear the hospital say, I'm sorry, we don't do broken legs. We just do broken fingers. If you have a broken leg, you need to go somewhere else. Like, dude, helicopters land here. You're a hospital. The buck stops here. And, one of the 12 specialties is dental public health. And when someone comes in and they got a toothache and you say, I can't do endo and I can't extract a tooth, well, why don't you give your license to someone who can, because we all need to be public health dentists. And here's another thing. You graduate $400,000 in student loans. You got to be a great salesman to sell bleaching, bonding, veneers. You don't have to be a salesman at all when someone comes in holding their face saying, I hurt like hell, can you help me? And same thing with an extraction. So, and when the insurance will pay you almost $1,000 to do a root canal, and you're $400,000 in debt. It looks like, to me, you only got to do 400 molar root canals, and we fix your student loan situation. So it boggles my mind that half the dentists in America won't do a molar root canal, and that's why you have 4,000 endodontists who used to do 8 to 9 molars a day. They used to be really productive, but then they got microscopes, and they slowed down to like 4 or 5 molars a day. I mean, they've really lowered their productivity and their income. They used to make about what oral surgeons did, and now oral surgeons are a couple $100,000 ahead of them because we've slowed down with these microscopes. But tell us your journey. Did you always love molar endo? Did you hate it? Did Lightspeed change it? Tell us your Lightspeed journey.
Sure. So a couple of things. Number one, you're right for the young docs. Endo can be an incredible tool. So for me, my favorite thing to do, we all said, what'd you say when you went to dental school and you went to your interview and they ask you, why do you want to be a dentist?
You say, because I like to work with my hands.
Okay. Mine is because I want to help people, right? Okay, so why is it that we would want to be in a position that the patient comes in pain, like you said earlier, and I can't help them? I want to be able to help them. That is the biggest kick I get out of practicing. It's not a set of veneers. That's fun, and we all like doing that. But really, the biggest help I can do for my patients is to relieve their pain. And when I do that and I go home at the end of the day, I feel like a stud. That's what I want to do. And so being able to do endo allows me to do that for so many more patients. Not only that, but as a practice builder, it's convenient for the patient. They don't have to go somewhere else. As a practice builder, when we send them out for the endo, now we got to wait. It's a waiting game now. So when will they actually get in, and how long will it take to get it done? And when will they get back? When do I actually get to do my crown? So if I can do endo for a myriad of reasons, it's great. Going back to my journey on endo, really, I'm nobody special, Howard. I'm just a dentist, and a blind hog will find an acorn every once in a while. So I was in dental
school. A blind
school.
hog will find an acorn
Every once in a while.
Is that what you said?
That's what I said.
I've never heard that one. That is awesome. A blind pig will find and it reminds me of even a broken clock gives the right time twice a day.
That's right. So I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. In San Antonio, the head of the endo department was an incredible doctor named Steve Sinia. And he was the head of the residency program. And while I was doing undergraduate, unbeknownst to me, he and a dentist who now practices, or an endodontist now in Dallas, Bill Wildey, were working on some research using nickel titanium files. And back then, there really wasn't much around. This was from 80 to 88. And so, I just kind of clocked on through, unawares and graduated. And then just a few years later, I see this thing out called Lightspeed. And it's my professor, Dr. Sinia, who has his name on it. And I knew him to be a man of incredible integrity. He was very passionate about endodontics. He was that professor that, walked around. I think, so some, Christians like to hold the Bible. He likes to hold endo files, and that was his deal. So I really put an extra validity on the technique. So I tried it, and it was kind of crazy. The first one I did, it was like angels were singing with this new technique. It was kind of like you described earlier. It just made the hand filing, a thing of the past. So I loved it, and I actually called over to talk to him, and apparently, he was just getting started. There weren't very many people doing this. I got to train with him, talk with him, and before I knew it, I was one of 4 so-called experts in the world on this technique. Now, the joke is, in order to be an expert, all you have to be is 50 miles away from your practice, because then nobody really knows what you do. So with that definition, I was an expert because I was traveling around lecturing. And I was very passionate about it because what that technique allowed, it was a non-tapered instrument, and the cutting edge was only at the tip of the instrument. On the smallest, a 10, it was about 0.25 millimeters in length. That's all the cut. Otherwise, you had a smooth shaft. On the largest instrument, which I believe is about 130, and it's been a few years, it was 1.75 millimeters in length. So the concern you mentioned earlier about blowing out your coronal third of your prep was really a moot point because we weren't even prepping there. We were prepping only at the tip of the instrument. And then we looked back at a lot of research that kind of showed that the apical third of the canal was really a lot larger than maybe what we were prepping to. The problem was we couldn't get to that size to clean the wall in a 360-degree circle without blowing out the coronal portion because we were using tapered instruments. Even our K-files are a 0.02 taper. So that means if you take a 10, which is 0.1 millimeter at the tip, it's 16 millimeters in length of the cutting flutes. Well, now when you get up to the top of those cutting flutes, you're at a 42 in width. So that taper does have an effect. So I taught this for about 20 years, was very passionate, believed in it, with all of my soul and heart, and did a ton of endo and loved it. However, as much as things remain they remain the same, however that saying goes, things do change, And so in today's world, we don't have to use that instrument because we do have some sonics. We do have some other techniques to clean the canal more thoroughly, and we can do it faster. So for me, the end of my little lecture career on endo, that's really all I knew. I was kind of a one-trick pony. Ended simply because the technology was no longer the best there is. I think there are other things out there that can do as good a job in as quick a time. And that's what I'm using today.
So they, Steve Senior, he ended up selling that to Discus Dental in 2006.
We did.
And then Discus Dental got sold again. I mean, some of these companies have been sold so many times. Is Steve still practicing, or did he retire off that, or what did he end up doing?
Yeah, so Dr. Steve is the endodontist. He retired a number of years ago, and his son Steven was kind of made the transfer and worked for Discus Dental for a number of years. He's a great guy. He's now retired as well. He lives in San Antonio. I think he does maybe a little bit of help somebody a little bit with his office, maybe some consulting. He was CEO of I'm going to get these titles wrong, but Stephen, Dr. Sinia's son, was the head of the endodontic department. They called it Smart Endo for Discus Dental for a number of years before they were sold.
Wow, it's a small world, and I'm just curious, what's closer? This selfish question: what's closer to Beeville, Texas? Is it San Antonio or Houston?
Oh yeah, San Antonio is just a hop, skip, and a jump south of San Antonio. I mean, Beeville is just barely south of San Antonio.
Huh.
And that's where I grew up, where I went to dental school.
Huh. That is an amazing. So, what do you think of Sonnet? Oh, so what are you using now? When you quit using Lightspeed, what did you switch to?
So I'm using Cliff. I believe it was Cliff Ruddle's research. I'm using the I'm going to tell you wrong. Endo Activator. So I'm using the Endo Edge files, which are the system that I use is Endo Edge Platinum. It's a knockoff of Dentsply's Pro Taper, which was acquired from Tulsa. And then I'm using the Endo Activator to clean once I've done my prep.
Yeah, so Endo Edge, that got bought by Henry Schein, right? That was Chuck, the endodontist out of Albuquerque. Let me see. Chuck Goodis. Yeah, so he was on podcast 309, Everything Endo Edge with Charles Goodis, who's in Albuquerque, which is really an interesting last name because some of the biggest legends in the history of endodontics all have the last name Goodis. And I asked him if he was related to the other ones, and he said no, but he smiled. I think he enjoyed having the last name though. But didn't he? Yeah. So he got in a big lawsuit with Dentsply, who bought Tulsa Dental products from Ben Johnson. Thanks, Kyle. I'm getting old and now. By the way, Ben called me this morning. He's just such a nice guy. He's just so smart. But what I love about Ben is he sold Tulsa Dental products to Dentsply. They made $1 gazillion, and guess what he does now? Even though he has $1 gazillion and he's still in Tulsa, Oklahoma, he just thinks about root canals. He just keeps thinking about root canals. But yeah, so that Endo Edge sold to Henry Schein, I believe, and so now that's their file to compete against Dentsply, which I don't understand because well Dentsply sells direct, and Patterson and Shine and Benco and Burco, that they don't like that. They want you to go through them. But distributors take about 40% off the top. But Tulsa, when he sold that to Dentsply, he kept it as selling direct. So they have direct divisions. So do you guys buy mostly through a dealer, or do you buy mostly direct?
I'm gonna let you talk to my ordering specialist here.
We order from EndoEdge, right?
We do our endo files, but most of our stuff comes through Darby.
Oh yeah.
Most of it comes through Darby. So
Right.
you could buy from anyone. Why Darby?
They're so much cheaper. I used to price them to Shine. Is that it? Shine and Benco? And I don't even do that anymore because it's just, and then when I call the rep and say, well, how much is this? Because I looked at it over there, and he'll say, you need to stop talking to Shine. It's just so much cheaper. Yeah.
Yeah, that is and then what's more confusing is you have these big companies like Shine or whatever, but then they have these different little buying clubs or groups or whatever, and dentists tell me, they go, well, I buy all my supplies from this company, and now I'm hearing that I would get it cheaper if I joined some club. Do you guys need to go? We went over an hour. Or you got patience? You need to.
I'm doing great. How are you, Howard?
I'm doing great, man. I'm talking dentistry, so I lose track of time. But there is another business thing that you talk about in MBA school when I got my MBA at ASU, and that is it starts off with it's all a cottage industry, like cattle is today. Like, not one company makes more than 1% of all the cows. Same thing with wheat, corn. They're cottage industries. I mean, everybody's an independent. Like, even in dentistry, there's 150,000 general dentists. Well, Heartland only owns 1,000 offices. They'd have to own 1,500 offices to own 1%. In fact, that's why I'm so excited, Kyle. Kyle, when are we coming up on 1,500 podcasts? Because the last one we put out today was 1,471. Do you realize? Well, next month, when I hit 1,500, that will be 1% of the general dentists. That means we interviewed 1 out of every 100 general dentists. And so it's a very, very cottage industry. And but anyway, so then what happens is the cottage industry will consolidate to like 3 to 5 players will have like 80% of the market. And as soon as about 3 players get 80% of the market or more, then the industry deconsolidates. So look at how my life's been since just drinking beer starting in high school, right? There was 1,000 little beer companies, and then it consolidated all the way to just Budweiser and Coors owned 80% of everything. And now it's deconsolidated back with all these microbreweries. So now we have the same number of breweries. When I started drinking in 80 to when I had my last beer last night, 40 years later, I've gone through the whole cottage, consolidate, deconsolidate. Same thing with dental supplies. When I started dentistry, there was every single city had like Phoenix Dental Supplies, and then guys like Pete Frechette of Patterson, Stan Bergman of Henry Schein, they got a big line of credit. They went and then consolidated all the suppliers, and it got to where it was just like Patterson sold a quarter, Schein sold a quarter, Benco and Burkhart sold a quarter, then about 15 small people sold the rest. And now it's deconsolidating again. I hear about a different dental buyers club, routinely. I think I've had 6 or 7 on the show. So, and then as soon as it gets all deconsolidated, someone will have the great idea, well, man, if someone just consolidated all of these into one, think of how much. So that consolidating, deconsolidating. It's the same with presidential elections. I always think the presidents, I don't want to get into politics. I've always been a libertarian, but, it'll swing over here and be Republican for a couple presidents, and it'll be Democrat a couple presidents, and it's just back and forth. It's like two presidents of Reagan, then 2 of Clinton, then 2 of, it's just back and forth. And that's why I actually predict Trump will win, because the incumbent has the huge advantage. And usually they get about 2 terms before everybody's sick of them. Then they'll switch to the other side. And it just goes back and forth. And to me, it's like some hypnosis thing to just keep giving them all your tax dollars. But what do you think of these new Well, first of all, I want to ask you if you buy into the theory that once you start filing out a molar more than 30, that you're going to weaken the tooth. And by the time you weaken the tooth, and if you put a post in, I mean, the only thing a post does is fracture a root. I mean, I don't think it has any other function. I think we should just call it a post fracture pull, to get that extra leverage there. But are you personally concerned about the O4 taper taking out too much tooth structure, weaken the tooth, and will that make you look at sawn endo or some irrigating cleaning device to clean all that up? So you just need a glide path to a 30. I've heard companies talking about how they'll start with maybe the file will be just a 0.03, and maybe an 0.05 instead of, all the does that ring a chord with you, or is that not really what you're seeing in your practice in your hands?
Oh, it does. So it's been a few years since I was on the lecture circuit, as they say, and so I'm not as involved in that research as I used to be. So some of my information may be out of date. My concern was never the size. If you look at studies going all the way back, Tronstadt and Karakis, I believe, if I'm not saying that wrong, did a study in like 73 and found that the apical, when they sectioned teeth 1 millimeter from the apex, and then they looked at them under an electron microscope and took a measurement. And the sizes that they found, the width of the canals at that location was amazingly larger than what we would think. The average width of a palatal canal of an upper first molar was like 0.8, okay, which would be a size 80 on an ISO hand file. So the problem was never the size, it was the taper. So yeah, I have to say I'm still a little worried about taper. At one point I remember there was a 0.08, they called it the greater taper. All of that was necessary because we couldn't get our irrigants down to the apical third. If you've got a 0.8 in the apical third, but it's a 0.5 in the coronal third, how are you going to get anything down there to really clean that out? And so, yes, I think some of our sonic, and again, I'm not up to the latest, but I think anything that will help us get that canal cleaned out better, I'm interested in.
Have you interested enough in sawn endo to demo it, or because some people say, well, the price is a big chunk of change, and it's not just like the $75,000. It's the fact that the things you need for each molar, the disposables for each tooth, are going to be another $75 to $100. Does that are you tempted to demo that, look into that, or not really at this time?
No, good question. So I'm one of those, old dogs that, I get in my habit, I get in my routine, and I'm very comfortable doing what I'm doing. So I haven't been looking around. That's why I say I may be out of date on some of my what's available. I would love to demo it, be interested in that. I think $75,000 to help me do a better endo is a pretty big bite to swallow. But yeah, if it's going to help me do a better job, I would be interested.
Huh. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how those come. I want to, a lot of books are written on the why, that, and I've seen that with my boys. I mean, I couldn't believe how my boys went from the ultimate kid, bachelor, hunting, fishing, fun, and the minute they dropped one baby, they had their why. Now they're just a totally different animal. They're a dad first. They're family first, business. What would you how would you help a kid in dental school find his why? Like why he's a dentist? We started at the beginning, like why did you tell your interviewer you wanted to be a dentist? Because you wanted to work with your hands. Where did you create your vision? Where did you find your why? And what would you tell some kid that just graduated in the middle of a damn pandemic and can't find a job? How does he find his why so he just stays internally motivated for his entire dental career as opposed to burnout, disease, depression?
I think that's an incredible question. If we go to work every day and we don't know why, how long are we going to be able to keep that up? But if we know why we're doing what we do, then that helps. And that why doesn't need to be the same for every person. I mean, it shouldn't be. It can't be. Your why and my why are going to be completely from within. I mentioned to you earlier that probably what makes my day more than anything is taking somebody out of pain. The patient comes into the office and they look terrible. We had a patient like that this morning, and swollen and almost crying and up all night. And in 5 minutes, and this is another little tip I'll give the young dentists: don't be afraid to numb somebody up. I mean, how can you let your financial person talk to them when they're sitting there in pain? Get your diagnosis, of course. Get them numb. You're already their hero. And then they can think straight to talk about their treatment and about the finances. So how do you find your why? Well, first of all, ask yourself why. Maybe ask your team why. In our office, are you familiar with, do you know what we call our office, Howard? Did we talk about that at all?
Blessed Dental.
Yeah,
Blessed Dental. And is that, where did that name come? And did that name have something to do with your why?
It does, for sure. It's Blessed Dental. I've taken a little criticism for that, actually, that maybe some people wouldn't be comfortable with that. And when you come into the office, we don't grab you and drag you into the closet and try to convert you to anything. What we do is we try to bless you just like you were one of our family members. We try and treat you with compassion, with kindness, and with gentleness. That's our tagline. Okay. Maybe someone else's why is that, anything else. I think our mission statement here, and I've been working on this, and this kind of comes from the song that you read the lyrics to earlier. You said, it's in a world full of hate, be the light. Well, I think in a world full of pain, we can be the light. And that's our why. I want to be the light to a hurting world. I want to make them feel better. I want to improve their lives. I think that.
Okay. And you've practiced 30 years, right?
I have.
And so that's your why. Blessed Dental, treat other patients like you'd like to be treated. How does your view look at the current state of dentistry from when you got out in the 80s to now in the 2020? Is dentistry, the sovereign profession dentistry, moving more towards Blessed Dental, or is it moving back the other way? Or how does it look to you?
So dentistry's in transition right now. We all know that. We know that some of the private practices are struggling. We know that there's consolidation of dental offices, and that's okay. Maybe you're a dentist that doesn't just love some of the administrative stuff. Maybe you want to focus on your why, and maybe it's growing and running offices. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just focusing on the patient. There's a place for all of our dentists within this world of dentistry, even though we are transitioning. So I think it'll be different in the future. The medical doctors have undergone that change before us. So.
Did any of your boys go into dentistry?
They all worked for Dad for a couple of years as an assistant, and I think that they just did not want to commit to the calculus and the chemistry and all that, but they loved the packing cord and making temporaries and they loved everything with their hands. And but basically their love, I started them when wrestling way too early. I started them at 5 full-time year-round, and by the time they were freshmen in high school, they hadn't lost matches in years, but they were done. They were burned out. And then they went into rock climbing. And then when they started going in rock climbing, there'd always be these recruiters saying they can't get anybody to climb 1,000 feet up a cell phone tower and switch out a Verizon box. I mean, most people get about 30 feet up. And they started offering my 2 oldest boys, like, okay, dude, we have an emergency. I'll give you $1,000 cash if I can drive you to this pole. And they're like rock climbers. They're like, I'll climb it for free. They were telling me, I said, Eric, when some guy offers you $1,000, take the cash. And so now they make more than dentists climbing up 1,000-foot deal. And they tried to scale it. They thought, oh, we're going to have a bunch of these. Every single employee quits on the first day at about 30 to 40 feet. And then Eric, he's always texting me pictures of him, I kid you not, hanging upside down by his knees, taking a picture of his truck, which looks like a little Matchbox cars. But talk about an essential service. I mean, you can't go without a cell phone tower. And during this whole pandemic, the government said the cell towers got to stay up. But where I'm concerned about is, I'm not worried about my 4 boys. They've all flown the nest. My dad died 21 years ago yesterday, And I know that, you know, I'm grandpa, I die next. And I'm looking at my grandkids, and when I saw CVS Prescription Pharmacy by Aetna, I mean, like say Delta bought Heartland and they consolidated the whole industry. Well, where does my little Taylor Marie go if she needs to go to a dentist, if the dentist works for the insurance company and Wall Street? I mean, I want her to go to a dentist, not a Wall Street broker and an insurance agent. I mean, so I'm worried about the sovereign profession of dentistry. I just want someone like you to look into Taylor's mouth and treat her like you'd want to be treated. Not as a financial incentive, like, oh, well, Taylor's got 28 teeth. How many crown opportunities do we have? I mean, she's got 7 MOD amalgams. Let's show her a crack around that and file it down for a crown. You know, I just want the dentist to be in charge of dentistry. I don't want Wall Street and insurance companies any more than I want, you know, a wheat farmer in charge of it. I mean, I want dentists to be in charge of dentistry. Does that mean I'm old school and behind the times and dumb, or just worried about my grandkids?
I think it means you know what your why is. And I think if the dentist, regardless of his environment, understands his why, you're not going to have a problem. You're going to have that dentist available for your grandkids.
And so that's a litmus test. You know, when Google started, you know, Sergeant Brendan Larry Page said, you know, this could go horribly wrong. And their whole motto was, do no evil. You know, just like the Hippocratic Oath said, first do no harm. And that's what I got to tell you kids, that, you know, that it's a slow degrading, and where you got to draw a line. If you go work for anybody, I don't care if it's private practice, I don't care if it's a big box, DSO, whatever, you got to treat that patient like you want to be treated. And once some office manager is up there telling you that, no, you know, you need to do this or you need to do that, you got to be able to say, well, you're not a dentist, and that's not what I would do on myself or my kid or my mom, and I'm not doing this. If all the dentists just stick to that. But one more question I got to ask you for the kids. They get out of school, they're like 25, and they go they get a job at a dental office, and their biggest stress, you know, they got A's in calculus, geometry, and trig. They still know the difference between a cosine and a tangent. And the biggest problems they have is with people. It's either the patients or the staff. And they keep being told they need to be a leader. So, final question. How does a 25-year-old baby that just got out of dental kindergarten school, how does she become a leader? And make it fast. How does she become a leader from 0 to 60 in 1 year? How would you coach her to be a leader?
So before I go to leadership, let me talk real quick, just a short story on this wine. Okay, and on this people you're talking about. Story yesterday. Sweet little lady came in, had her teeth cleaned. I did her exam. Everything went great. She looks at me. She seems very concerned. She says, I need to talk to you in private. Well, I'm like, oh my goodness. She's angry. What did my team do? What's going on? So brought her into our little consult room. That's what we're seeing right here. I said, what's up? She says, well, I just wanted to give you an apology. I said, give me an apology? What's up? Well, I lied. Really? Yeah, I told your hygienist that I'd been brushing my teeth and I haven't. And she was really bothered by this. Well, I just reached across and put my hand on her hand. And I said, it's okay. I understand. And here's the short of the story. Her son passed away a few months ago. She hadn't been motivated to do anything, much less brush her teeth. And so sometimes forget the tooth. There's a person attached. And so really the best thing I did yesterday had absolutely nothing to do with dentistry. It had to do with putting the hand on a senior lady who had lost her 52-year-old son and just letting her know that someone cared. She told me, she said, that's the first human touch I've had since COVID started. And so when it comes to your why, it may not always be about teeth. Then when it comes to leadership, you ask about that. Let's talk about leadership. I grew up in a very authoritarian or authoritative, you know, it was dad was right and patriarchal and my way or the highway and you know, almost militaristic. And I responded to that really great. You know, I snapped into place and that worked until I was, you know, I don't know how many years old. And I realized that that's not the way of the world. There's a book I'm reading right now by Simon Sinek called Leaders Eat Last. You familiar with that book?
No.
Fantastic book. You know, the opening chapter talks about a Marine. Well, actually, the opening chapter talks about someone who was providing cover for his troops on the ground and the risk he took to help them in time of war. Next scene, they're in a mess hall, and the officers are not at the front of the line. They're at the back of the room, and they don't eat until every one of those enlisted men has eaten. And then the officers who really had the rank to step up front and take the food first, only then did they eat. And so how do you be a leader? Well, it's not any great secret, really. It's simply make your team, make your patients, make anyone that your children, whoever it is you're trying to lead, make them realize that you would take a bullet for them. Make them realize that you're going to put their best interest ahead of your own. It's back to what you said, Howard. Treat them the way you would want to be treated. You know what? You're going to develop the strongest, most dedicated followers you'll ever have. Not because you're smart, not because you're great or good looking, but because they realize, you know, I heard you, Howard, one time say, I love my assistant. I would take a hand grenade and throw it in my operatory before I would get rid of her. You cared about her. And that's what I think it takes to be a leader.
I gotta, you're so good at 30,000 feet macro, and I gotta keep you over overtime for one more question. We know in 1900 there were no specialists, right? And healthcare was only 1% of the GDP. At the end of the century, dentistry had 8 specialists, physicians had 58, and we were at 14% of GDP. Now it's 2020, we're at 17% of GDP. Dentistry's gone from 9 specialties to 12. And you have these kids coming out of school, and they want to do everything. They want to be a super dentist. They want to be an endodontist, periodontist. They say, I want to do Invisalign like an orthodontist, implants like an oral surgeon, crown and bridge like a prosthet. And I'm like, okay, well, I know we can't go back in time because my friend who's an ophthalmologist, he doesn't even do glaucoma or glasses. He only does the retina part of it. I mean, it's so specialized. What do you think of these kids who want to be a super dentist and do it all? And I love the ambition. I don't want to be the jerk that says, well, if you're going to learn Invisalign and do it like an orthodontist, you got to give something up. You can't keep being an endodontist, a pediatric dentist, a periodontist. I mean, what do you say to the super dentist who wants to master everything?
Well, I think that first of all, I'm gonna say I praise you on your spunk. You know what I mean? We all want to do everything. That's great. And maybe some of us can, but maybe some of us can't. I would say if you're young, you're right out of school, again, focus on the basics. Learn to do restorative. Learn to do fillings so the patients don't come back with sensitive teeth first. Okay? Learn to do crown and bridge so that the crowns aren't falling off. Don't get distracted by all the peripheral CE yet. It's incredibly important. I love CE. I get 200-300 hours a year probably in CE. It's absolutely fantastic. But learn to do the basics first, and then learn more. If you can, we talked earlier about, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth here because I'm saying learn the basics first. But then, if you get the speck out of your own eye, you can see clearly to move forward. So once you have those things mastered, then find out what you like. And that's great. Be a super dentist. Because it's going to allow you to provide that service for your patient. Again, like we said earlier, it's kind of nice for your patient not to have to go to 5 different offices to get their dental work done if you can do it. But make sure you're doing it well. Make sure that if you were the patient, you would want yourself. If I'm going to do a root canal, I want to know I want Bob Stewart doing my root canal. And if I can say yes to that, then that's great. Go for it.
Okay, final question. Kim, you have to answer. They're scared, man. They're 25. They got $400,000 student loans. Dental Town started in 1999, and it's always had about 1,000 dentists selling their practice and about 5,000 jobs. Now it's 2,000 dentists selling their practice because they don't want to deal with all this PPE and all. They're done. And the 5,000 jobs have gone down to 1,000 jobs. So now there's 2 people selling and saying, I'm done with dentistry, I'm cashing out, and I'm running, and only 1,000 saying, we're still going and growing, and they can't find jobs. They text me. They put their resumes everywhere. They're scared, they're broke, and they're in the middle of a damn pandemic, an election. The Wall Street cycle. I mean, I've been a big fan of Warren Buffett. 10 years ago was Lehman's Days. 10 years ago was Y2K. 10 years ago was Black Monday. I mean, the economy. So the economy was already headed in trouble a year before the pandemic. What advice would you give them? Kim, what would you tell him? Just to start? Would you tell him just to switch from beer to whiskey? Just step it up a notch? Or what advice would you tell him?
You go.
Yeah, no, well, first of all,
it's bad when Kim just says, pass. We'll see if Bob's dumb enough to take this question.
Very rarely is she short of words. But, and you mentioned whiskey in Texas. Our governor's decided the restaurants can sell it to go. So we're all in for the pandemic. We're okay.
But what would you tell that kid? I'm getting 3-4 emails and texts a day just in Arizona. I mean, we got a 3.8 million metro, and they're just saying, dude, I graduated from a great school. I can't find a job. I'm in a pandemic. What the hell should they do?
First of all, I'd say I'm really sorry that you graduated at this time. You and I, Howard, we graduated. Life was good, but what did we hear back then? I heard the old guys going, wow, the golden age of dentistry was the 70s. I was like, well, it's 88, and I just worked hard to get here. So keep your chin up. Life dentistry has been great to me. I said that earlier. Be real careful about debt. You've been one of those persons who can go to post-gratification. Your friends graduated high school, and, some of my buddies got new cars and jobs. And I went to college. And then I graduated college, and some of my buddies got nicer cars and better jobs. And then I went to dental school. And so you've been doing that for years as a recent graduate, and you're ready to live. But, you may have to put it off just a little bit more. Don't go crazy yet. That your time is coming. I'm telling you. So people have teeth and they need us, and it's going to be wonderful. Just give yourself a chance to spread your wings and fly. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, we just hired a guy who just graduated. I literally assisted him on his very first occlusal filling, and the patient looked at him and said, so how old are you? How long have you been doing this? And he said, well, I've been doing it for 4 years, but you're my first one. So we kind of lightheartedly went through and realizing that was his very first filling he did outside of professors overlooking what he was doing. And honestly, I think what he's doing, he's young. I think he's 27. He's getting married in December. I think he's smart. To me, he's practicing under a brilliant dentist right here. He's a great teacher. He's really good at a lot of things. We didn't even talk about his amazing technique at getting people numb. I think that's a skill that dentists need to know. How do you get someone numb? That's how you build a practice, by not hurting people. And he's kind of learning under him while making a living. So limp along doing that, get good at dentistry, and then you're home free. I mean, it's what he did 33 years ago, and it's what Dr. Lopez is doing now, and I think he's going to be a great dentist for it someday.
Well, Kim, you didn't finish the story. Did the patient live?
He's alive. He lives to
Oh my God, it's a happy story. Yay. Yay, the patient lived. Hey guys, thank you so much. It was a blessed opportunity for all of our listeners to have you come on the show and keeping it real. And the next time I'm at Beeville, don't give me your address or I'll bring you a blue egg.
You know what? I would love to have you anytime, Howard. Our door is always open. Hey, I have to tell you real quick. I've been in your office, and you didn't even know. I was a stealth visitor.
Oh, wow. What year was that?
It was fantastic. Well, it was when I was doing those lectures. I was on my way to an event in LA, and I had a layover in Phoenix. It was back before the 911 time. And so I just grabbed a rental car, called your office, and said, I'm in town. I want to see it. They were wonderful. I snuck in, I hid in the corner and watched. I learned a ton. Then you had an associate dog, Dr. Savage.
Yeah, Bob Savage. Yeah, I love that guy.
He was awesome. He gave me a tour around the office, and I was totally impressed. So this has been an honor for me. I got to do a podcast with my dentist hero, Howard Farron. Well, so thank you so much.
Last story for me, I have to say, I remember sitting in on one of your lectures, and your wife was pregnant, and you were really hoping it was going to be a girl, and I guess it was not. But anyway, he oh, I lost my train of thought. See, I do it too.
Too much.
Well,
nice.
I had 4 boys, and they've made 6, and 2 of them are girls. And I actually feel sorry for them. I'm kind of confused because all we do is take them hunting, fishing, motorcycle, shotgun, and it's like I keep telling my boys, should we be doing something girly? I mean, is there anything girly? And they just go, shh, shh. I don't think she knows she's a girl yet. So
next time you're in Texas, we need to go hunting together.
this girl shot a pig before she had a Barbie doll. I mean, it's but
you're my hero. I mean,
all
that's
right.
what I can say.
Well, what he did was 33 years ago, he was not who he is today. He was the dentist who said, why do I have to tell my staff, thank you? I give them a paycheck. And whereas today, that's not him as a leader. He tells people, thank you for being here. You're amazing. I heard you in a lecture one time say, my assistant is so important to me. I really would take a hand grenade, throw it into Op 2 and blow it up before I would get rid of her. Throughout the 33 years of him practicing, I've constantly, remember what Howard says, and he literally has become that today. He's much more.
See, together you two have learned me better.
Thank you, Howard.
All right, on. All right, I hope to see you in Texas someday.
Love it.
All right, have a great day.
Bye-bye.